Today I want to cover childhood neglect and the correlation between childhood neglect and how we show up as adults. When your emotional needs weren't met as a child, you don't just grow out of it, you grow around it. Childhood neglect isn't always about what happened to you, it's often about what didn't happen. For healthy, nurturing parents, we have that maternal instinct to love, support and provide validation, and also safety and attention to our children. We understand the basic human need of food, shelter, love and security. That's what kids need to grow into healthy adults. However, neglectful parents have either no concept of this, couldn't care less, or are just narcissistic and cruel to the very core. How anyone could be cruel to a defenceless child is beyond my comprehension. Now, the illusion is that neglect only comes from the obvious, but emotional neglect is as equally damaging. I cannot make enough importance on how damaging it is for a child to experience any kind of neglect from their caregivers. Basic human needs like love, security, is essential as oxygen. When a child is being neglected, the brain uses survival strategies, and those strategies help the child cope at the time, but they can turn into unhelpful patterns in adulthood. In my profession, at the very core of people's suffering is a neglected and traumatised child who suffered from mother and father hunger. They were brought up in a dysfunctional household which lacked love, connection, warmth and stability. Childhood neglect is a form of maltreatment, the lack of basic needs and necessity. When a child is brought up with emotionally unavailable caregivers or a chaotic environment, they become responsible far too young. Growing up emotionally unsupported, your nervous system stays in a chronic state of hypervigilance. You have difficulty trusting others, and as a general, people are deemed unsafe. The fear of rejection eats your insides. You have frequent periods of dysregulation and emotional shutdown, paired with numbness. This is the brain's way of protecting you because you had to learn to handle everything alone. The types of neglect a child can face are physical, medical, educational and emotional. So physical neglect looks like the child not being provided with food, supervision and shelter. The medical neglect is a failure to provide the child with adequate professional help, seeing a doctor when needed, regular eye checkups, allowing the child to have antibiotics or dental care. Now, if you are an SEN parent like me, this is a whole new ballgame. But to intentionally allow your child to go without professional and medical help is neglect. Educational neglect. Parents who are neglectful tend not to take an interest in things like homework, truancy or bullying. They don't support their kids within their school environment. Their child needs are not put before their own. So parents won't attend parents' evenings, shows or events, and if they do, which is rare, will only be to keep up the facade. Emotional neglect. This is when the caregivers fail to provide affection and emotional support. The child goes through life feeling unseen and unheard. Children depend on adults to understand their emotions, so when they are emotionally neglected, they start to make their own internal conclusions, which is incredibly sad and tough. Their inner core beliefs are generally, I don't matter, I shouldn't need help, I am too much. and this causes an erosion and a disconnection from their emotions, and this is a survival coping mechanism. So what are the consequences of child neglect? Neglect has a severe lasting effect on your cognitive development, mental health and social functioning. One becomes dysregulated. You will suffer from low self-worth, anxiety and depression. You may also lack a secure attachment style. Childhood neglect has caused you a failure to understand and process your feelings. You became self-reliant emotionally to survive. The chronic stress leads to immune dysfunction, obesity, heart disease, PTSD, and substance abuse in adulthood. Both men and women who grew up in a neglectful household function daily on high levels of adrenaline, fear, and anxiety. And this is because their pathways for social development took a back seat, and the nervous system was shaped early on for ongoing fear and survival. And this fundamentally helps to shape personality, like narcissism, psychopathy, and dissociative identity disorders. Up to 6% of the population makes up the narcissistic personality disorder individuals. 1% of the population makes up the psychopath individuals. And 7% of the population may have dissociative identity disorder, with a huge proportion remaining undiagnosed. Now, I'm not saying that if you were neglected as a child, you are an arch psychopath or have dissociative identity disorder. But the truth in the matter is, our personalities are developed and shaped by our caregivers' responses to us and by the environment we were brought up in. Our environment was essential to brain development and cognitive function. Neglect impairs the development of the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. So the lack of recognition to our internal state helped to shape our brains into survival mode and hypervigilance. Research shows that kids who were neglected and malnourished, either through poverty or coercion of control in abusive households, end up with eating disorders and digestive issues in adulthood. But it can start in childhood. So now that I've covered the basics, let's look at the adult. As an adult, you have difficulty identifying emotions. Some adults struggle to know what and how they are feeling. You people please to keep others happy because your needs were never prioritised. You were dismissed and invalidated. You were trained to keep quiet. You have trouble with boundaries and have fear of being a burden to others. You often attract emotional, unavailable partners because these type of people will reflect your chaotic family dynamic. You are fiercely independent. You minimise your own struggles. You feel emotionally disconnected, and you find it hard to set boundaries. So here are some reflective questions for you all. How was your child growing up? Growing up, did you feel safe expressing your emotions? Were your feelings dismissed or taken seriously by your parents? How do you feel as an adult? Can you set good boundaries or do you people please? And that's not a judgment. I am curious. So thanks for listening. And if any of this resonates with you, come and say hi. We can have a chat. Share your thoughts. This is your safe place. I will listen, and it will be without judgment. So don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And as always, Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you all in the next one.